Mentally, I was severely unwell, depression, anxiety, but also physically, I hadn't worked out how to care for myself. I would eat with the intention of kind of making my life worse. I always felt like I didn't deserve to be healthy. So I founded Not So Typical Fitness because I myself am not so typical. I want to help other people who...
Hi, Rhiannon. Welcome to the show today. Let's start off just by, I suppose, learning a little bit about you. What do I need to know about your life to understand what it is that you do now?
I'm very excited to be here. It's my first proper podcast as a guest, so this is quite cool. But my whole life kind of took a pivot, and I'm going to give you a bit of context. So in November 2022, I was late diagnosed with autism and ADHD. Now, I was 30, and my life prior to that I'd never really known who I was and where I fit in. I didn't really have a career. I seemed to change industry and jump career every 12 months, if not before that. Mentally, I was severely unwell, depression, anxiety, but also physically, I hadn't worked out how to care for myself. And I think I had a lot of, this is going to go deep really fast, but I had a lot of kind of hatred to myself because of never fitting in, really. So this diagnosis that I received just changed every aspect of my life. So at the time, I was approximately 24 stone. I was not in a good place, as I say, mentally or physically. And what this diagnosis enabled me to do was to almost bit by bit reassess my being, who I was, and how I coped with the world and life. And going through that process basically enabled me to identify that life didn't actually have to be this way for me. And if we jump forward kind of a couple of months past the diagnosis, I was walking with my partner through the woods. We've got dogs. We walk them every day. We were just walking. My partner, she was out of breath. And I was like, oh, this is odd because you're out of breath and I'm not out of breath. Now, I was much bigger than she was.
Yeah.
And in my mind at the time, I was like, oh, so I'm fitter than you then. I'm not out of breath. And I also had a horse then. And so I mucked out a horse every day. And I had what I would say quite an active lifestyle, but I didn't look it or feel it. But we decided, but actually, how can I be fit if I never get out of breath? And that sort of sat with me for a few days. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I must have had a level of kind of cardiovascular health that was okay. But the reality was I was never pushing my heart or my lungs to actually work beyond that base rate for me.
Yeah.
So I really sat down one day and thought about it. And the last time I could remember being out of breath, and bearing in mind I was 30 at this point, was at school, at high school.
Okay,
because exercise was just traumatic. I never knew why. I thought, well, I'm the big girl. Of course, I don't like exercise. That was that, really. Of course, now I look back and it's all these sensory things that were happening that I couldn't understand. And being sweaty or out of breath make me feel out of control, which I hate. It's like a trigger for me.
Yeah.
So I went from feeling like, oh, well, I'm much fitter than my partner here, to realizing actually I'm probably going to die pretty young because my body is not working. And how can you expect a muscle like a heart or your lungs to carry on working when they're not being pushed and they're not actually being encouraged to keep going?
Yeah. Was it almost like a protection mechanism? I mean, we're delving into this a lot, but had you not pushed yourself because of those early feelings and maybe the not understanding what those feelings were?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I have a lot of black periods in my life, especially during school. So my memory of that time, and I think a lot of people in general, diagnosed, late diagnosed or not, have trauma in childhood. That's something I think everybody should see a therapist for, if I'm honest.
I'd agree.
But yeah, I think that it is. If you had asked me if I enjoyed exercise, I would have always said, no, I hate it. I hate exercise. But I think actually looking back, it wasn't that I hated exercise. It's like you said, it's the kind of feelings that came with it. So when I would get sweaty, which would happen quickly because I've always been quite a big person, I would be kind of, constantly pulling at my clothes and feeling uncomfortable. And so I would then not want to get sweaty. So then I wouldn't want to put effort in. So of course, I don't like exercise, but I think the reality is it's all of the feelings that kind of encompass what exercise does to the body. And the breathlessness was the big one for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there, isn't there? And I guess, reversing a little bit as almost like that trigger has, since having the diagnosis, sort of allowed you to unpack and start to understand some of those bits, because whether you're diagnosed or not, you're still the same person. That hasn't changed you, but has it changed the way you view things and maybe become kinder to yourself because you're understanding why you feel like that, why something triggers you, why you do things in a certain way?
Yeah, hugely. So before my diagnosis, I would hit kind of these meltdowns that I didn't really ever understand. And it would be the most almost trivial of things. And it would be something simple like being in a shop and a bell rings at the door every time someone comes in. And all of a sudden that would push me into this complete sensory overload or meltdown or whatever. And I would, pre-diagnosis, I wouldn't be able to acknowledge that feeling coming. It would just suddenly hit me. And then I would be almost gaslighting myself into, well, everyone else can deal with this. Look around. Nobody else is stressed over the bell. So just carry on. And I would then try so hard to be normal and get through the shop experience or the train journey or whatever it is. Having a diagnosis enabled me to almost pick up on these little cues that my brain gives me when something's becoming overwhelming. And so then rather than forcing myself to stay in that situation and to cope or to bear it, I can now advocate for myself and be like, do you know what, this place, I can't be here right now. I'm just going to take myself out for 5 minutes. And by doing that, removing myself from a situation, I'm then able to almost regulate my senses, ground myself a little bit, and then I can actually carry on my day. And whether I go back into the shop or not isn't really the point, but it's being able to avoid that place that I used to go to that was just so mentally overwhelming and exhausting. And by advocating for myself and telling myself, it's okay to struggle, you then do learn that it's like, I wouldn't say it's self-love versus self-hate, but there's a new understanding that allows me to be a lot easier on myself. And that's the key.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because, there's that thing of, with the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with, but the person we spend the most time with is ourselves. And when we're talking negatively to us, and it could even be that not understanding why something has triggered us and going, why aren't I normal, as you've said, other people are dealing with it. And you're getting that negative talk actually from yourself. But by understanding this, it means your self-talk can improve, and therefore that impacts so many sort of areas of your life.
Yeah. And I think if we jump back to my body weight size when I was diagnosed, and I suppose I have an eating disorder. So I'm not quite sure if it falls into kind of a binge eating or bulimia type scenario here. But the way that I previously, and even today, I dip back into this, is I would eat as a punishment to myself. So a lot of people would turn to food, I think, and they would say, I turn to food when I'm happy, when I'm sad. I just like food. Whereas for me, I would eat with the intention of kind of making my life worse. I always felt like I didn't deserve to be healthy and I didn't deserve to be happy. And therefore it was almost like a self-harm, I think, but a non-visible kind of version. And it's been something that's been really hard to unpack, because I think that's come from 30 years of never feeling at home in my body. And that whole, well, why can't I be like everybody else? And feeling so out of control with everything that I would try and control this part of me that could make my life worse. It's a very odd thing to unpack, but that's kind of when I talk about my diagnosis helping me understand my body more, that then feeds into not punishing myself with food because I'm easier on myself, which is where that link kind of connects there between a diagnosis and self-image and self-worth. And I go through challenges in life still today, everybody does, and it would be very easy to drop back into that. But having this new kind of outlook or understanding is probably the right word, I'm able to navigate it much better than I did previously. I can't remember the question that you actually asked then.
No, I mean, I don't think I did. I think we were just talking. I sort of said a statement. I mean, you talk about the late diagnosis, and you mentioned childhood trauma and things like that. And certainly I think schools have got better, and there's certainly more understanding and talking about. I don't know if it's perfect. It probably isn't, but I think there's some getting better. But certainly, if you go back, when you were a teenager, sort of 15, 20 years ago, hitting that time, actually everyone was treated the same and I mean that because that's a good thing that people are treated the same, but it's not in the fact that actually you get changed in this changing room, which is incredibly noisy. Everyone's getting undressed in front of each other. You go out and you do sport, and I can see how certain things there would trigger you, and whether it's someone who sport, whether it's in a a maths class, and that people have got that absolute fear of being asked the question because they just don't understand what's going on. There is a lot from school time, I think, that is starting to come out in adults, certainly aged between sort of 30 and 50, because actually there wasn't that support there, and maybe understanding, or if there was, we didn't understand it ourselves, if that makes sense. And therefore you do slip into that slope. Again, no real question there. It was just, do you think that's a good assessment?
Yeah. And I think I'm assuming you've seen this image where it's is it equality versus equity? And it's the boxes with people stood there. So for anybody listening, it's two images, and please correct me if I get this wrong. But one, everyone's got the same size box. They're all stood on it. So it looks like a father and maybe two children. The father can see great. He's tall. One of the children can just about see, but the shortest child can't see at all. But he has the same box. And then the kind of other image is the same setup, but the father doesn't need a box. Therefore, he doesn't have one. The taller of the two children has a single box so he can just see. But then this shorter child has the box he had previously and the box of the father, and he can now see. And it's that you can give everybody the same thing, and you are, treating everybody the same, but it isn't actually what everybody needs.
No.
And
it's not the same outcome,
Exactly. And it's that the whole lived experience is different for different people, so that we don't all need the same thing. I mean, I could talk about this for hours, honestly, because I'm so passionate about it, not just in fitness, which is, what we will be talking about mostly for me today, but in employment and things. It's that whole reasonable adjustments and why people need certain things differently to others. And it might not be a physical height thing, but why is height any different to what's going on in someone's mind? It's not really. It's still something that needs to be treated differently if it's needed. So it's definitely a thing.
Certainly, I'm unpacking, that internal faults, like you say, with regard to, I've had a team, and I've certainly had someone who, would overanalyze every message that I would send to them. And I learned the worst message I could say was, can you jump on a call? Because in their mind, they were like, am I in trouble? Am I getting fired? And I'm like, no, not at all. But, so I understood that. So I'd always provide some context to why a call would be helpful. I've seen you've done this brilliant work. Love to just get your feedback on something. Can you, whatever it is, and it's making those adjustments, because otherwise, someone was almost fearful of replying, worried about jumping on a call, almost ruined someone's morning just from an off the cuff coming. And it'd be very easy for me to say, well, just, I didn't mean it like that, so they shouldn't interpret it. But actually, you can be empathetic to someone and just understand the way people like to communicate, and just pick up on those bits and try and make the work life better. Because actually, it's, again, regardless of how they like to be communicated with, all of the outputs were brilliant. This person was doing excellent work. It was nothing to do with work. It was just making some adaptations so that actually they felt better and could continue doing that great work.
And it's a small thing. It's not even like it's going to take you, some things you're going to have to do bigger changes, but when it's something like that, it's so small. It's such a nothing bad at the end of it. Can we have a quick chat? Nothing bad. Even that is enough to be like, okay, well, it's nothing bad, because it is so easy to go straight to that negative place of, well, I'm in trouble, something's gone wrong, and I do this. And I've had great employers and I've had not so great employers, and the difference is astonishing just with how happy you feel at work. But I'm a big believer in that a lot of these things would actually benefit everyone anyway. And I know that we talked just then about how, the box thing, you can't treat everybody the same. But I think a lot of the adjustments we can make, just simple day-to-day ones, actually would make everybody's life better. And I don't know why we don't do them as a standard. And I think that's a big thing for me, because you're not changing the world really for you by adding that extra sentence on. But you might be making it so much easier, not just for that employee that told you they feel that way, but Joe, Bob, Jack, anybody in your team who may be feeling that way but not able to notice it or tell you why. It can still improve it then.
Yeah. It's also, I guess, we are going to move on to fitness in a minute, but those understanding those triggers, like you say, there could be other people who actually it does throw them out, but they don't realize it has until later in the day. Actually, they snap at someone or they do something, and it's trying to join those bits together. And I can be the same. Certain there's little bits I've picked up about what I do, which I didn't realize in the past. So a classic example, I use the same locker at the gym pretty much every time, and I've had to work on, if someone's using it, that's fine. You know what? I just use one of the others. And it's just that habit, because the more things I make easy in my life that I don't have to think about, the more mental capacity I've got to do my other work. So I don't want to have to think, which locker am I using? I walk in, I use that one. I've also got a favorite bench, but, have sort of the 8 of them, but it's fine. Other people can use it, but it was sort of like, but that's my default. And I've realized actually I'm a creature of habit in some of those things. And it's just, making sure that it doesn't throw my day out if those things have been interrupted.
Yeah. And I know exactly what you mean about the lockers. Oh, I've even debated. So before qualifying as a personal trainer, so I have a locker at my gym now. That's my locker. And it's great because, it's my locker. It's in the staff room. I love it. And it's even got my name on. Oh, it's brilliant. But prior to qualifying, I would have the same thing. I'd go to a gym with my gym stuff, wanted to chuck them in a locker, had the same locker. And it throws you completely, because your routine is not there anymore. Suddenly you've got to use your brain in a way that you didn't expect, or you don't have the energy to do. Yeah. And I think that it can really throw you when, especially if you struggle a bit with kind of your energy resources, let's say, and going to the gym, especially in the beginning of someone's fitness journey, is hard. So you've got to find the courage to go, but the energy to go. And any little thing like that can almost be enough some days to be like, I just can't do it, because for me as an autistic ADHD, and my brain can very quickly just shut down. It's like, I can't make a decision. And it could be as simple over which locker to use. And sometimes in a previous gym, I would then carry my stuff around. And it sounds odd because there've been lots of other lockers available, but having to make a choice over which one was too much at that time. Yeah. And so I can't do it. I go into this, I call it decision paralysis, where I cannot make a decision. Like if my partner was there, I would just ask her, which locker shall I use? And she could tell me and I would use it and it would be fine. But someone else has to take that decision making. And I think it's a really difficult thing to explain to a lot of people. how can you not make a decision, or why does it even matter? But these little things do matter. And I think it's important to understand that to some people, not having their normal locker actually would make the difference to them being able to work out or not. And they might leave because they can't make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, decisions are shocking. I mean, I'm pretty good now, and I plan lots of my day and take out as many things. You know, like going to the gym this morning. I'd got my gym kit out last night, so I knew exactly, because I didn't want that. What am I going to wear? What t-shirt am I putting on? Yeah, because I don't know what else is going to get thrown in the mix, because there are always those things that I can't control. So I try and control as much as I can. Because I've very easily had it where, suddenly you're about to leave, you get a phone call and someone asks it, and suddenly it's thrown you out and you think, oh, I haven't got time now this morning, because you've had this 1 minute phone call, and you get caught up in that sort of process. And, I've had it even sort of, what am I going to eat? And I can feel myself getting hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. And you think, would I actually starve to death rather than make a decision on what I'm eating? And, maybe a very extreme example, but I can see how making a decision, it paralyzes you.
Yeah, it really is something that should be so simple, but is so not simple sometimes.
No.
And with the food thing, for me, it's like I forget to eat. And I get so in the zone of something, whether it's at the gym doing something or it's working here in my office at home. I get so into it, suddenly look up at the time and I've not eaten all day. And that's a weird one as well, because it's like all day I know, well, I need to go and eat. I need to go and eat. I should go and eat. But then I kind of just forget to do it. And that's just an odd thing as well. And I often wonder the same. And the toilet, I forget to go wee. I don't wee myself, but
No.
I wait until I'm so desperate that I literally can't sit here anymore. And I could have been thinking for hours. I could have even told my wife, "Oh, I need to go to the toilet for a wee," and I still don't go. It's like my brain is just somewhere else. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots to unpack there, and I'm sure, I mean, you
No,
mentioned
sorry,
therapy, and
talk
I've
about
certainly,
we.
but I've certainly worked through some of these, and I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I've done that before, thinking, I could do it for a week. Oh, hang on, I've got that in 10 minutes. Have I got time? Of course you've got time, but then you end up,
I know.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. But I guess, in your journey, so from this, you've then become a personal trainer. So not just have you taken a bit of control on your own fitness, you're now helping other people. And do you find, I mean, you say you're not an ordinary personal trainer. Do you find that because of the story that you've got, does that help you to connect with other people? Do you work with a specific type of, I mean, talk me through it.
I'm smiling loads because I qualified in December last year. So we're going to date this, right? So we're talking in January 2025.
Yeah.
I only qualified in December 24 and I qualified in 4 months. I did it not intensively, but I dedicated a lot of, any free time I had to qualifying alongside my full-time job. And I got a gym job at a Pure Gym on the 1st of Jan. That was when I started working. So my life everything pivoted. Now, I had a meeting with my boss in the gym and to explain my clientele, because I founded Not So Typical Fitness because I myself am not so typical, and knowing these kind of sensory issues and overwhelm that I've had throughout my journey, I want to help other people who maybe aren't, I'm going to use this word privileged, but privileged enough to even have a diagnosis to know why they can't do it. And I think this is a whole other conversation, but a diagnosis, it's privilege, because the NHS doesn't have these services available in many places. ADHD wait lists are up to I think my partner was on a waiting list of 4 years. That's insane.
Yeah,
and then
crazy.
Autism, there's none for some people. There was nowhere for me to be referred. So it's a privilege to get these things. So I'm lucky in that sense. But there are some people out there who still have all these issues. As you said at the start, I'm the same person that I was then. And I really want to tailor my approach to people who are diagnosed and know they are and maybe need some extra support, but mostly for anybody who feels just they don't belong in fitness and the gym's not for them, because it can be. You just have to do it in a slightly different way. Now, the reason I was grinning is I want to tell you this story. So I was talking to my boss, and he was saying how I could go and get clients on the gym floor. I've got my thing up on the wall, and Pure Gym are quite good. They do have all their PTs on a wall. You can have business cards and you can talk about yourself whilst you're doing your shift.
Yep.
So that's great. Most people would be recruiting, just left, right and centre, really kind of, do you want a PT session? Come along kind of thing. Yep. My clients, they're not going to, now I'm assuming here, because obviously everyone is different, but I don't think that this pushy sales technique is going to work for the people that I really want to get and to help. And I told my boss, well, I don't think my clients will really be in the gym, to be honest. I think they'll come to me online, and then I will be able to work with them and bring them into the gym. So I explained, I think my business is going to be quite a slow burn, and I don't think I'm going to get any clients for a while, and that's fine. I need to learn to feel comfortable in a gym setting, because for me, even, it's overwhelming, it's noisy, it's clanky weights, it's a lot, the music, the lights, there's a lot going on for that.
Yeah.
But what's happened is I've picked up clients just in the gym, and it's because my whole approach is different. So I had my first group exercise class that I had to run myself on Sunday just gone. And to be honest, I was bricking it. It's a hard thing for me to do exercise in front of people. This is like a trigger for me as well. And that stems from childhood trauma in PE for sure.
Yeah.
Got to. So I had this thing where I just struggle. And I've been really nervous about this class, but fundamentally, this is a part of my job if I want to work at this gym. So I knew it was one of those things, like a non-negotiable. I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to hate it, and I feel really nervous, but I'll do it because I have to. Anyway, I was checking the sign-ups, and there was no one booked on it. And I arrived at my shift on a Sunday for midday. Class was at 12:30, and only at about 12:05 did one person book onto it. And I was doing circuits. So my plan is to have 8 stations and to have people. So it's all right. I was like, right, backup plan. If one person arrives, I will offer them a PT session instead. That's fine.
Yeah.
When they book online, they can see the name of the trainer, but that's it. So for them, they might look at it, but they might just think, I'm going to do a class today. So it might not be my target person. So I'll just offer them a PT session. That's fine. But then I started thinking, like, now I don't know if I need to set up the circuits or not, because what if more people turn up and then there's no circuit set up? And I looked at the time, and I had about half an hour, and I wanted half an hour to set up my class. And I had this moment of, I need to do something here. So I scrapped the half an hour setup time, and I went around the gym, and I went and spoke to people in the gym, and I said that I'm new and I've got a new class, and there's no pressure, but if you'd like to come and try a class. Now, and obviously I was trying to have conversations with them if they weren't working out, unable to speak. So ones that are walking on a treadmill, we're having conversations, but there's another one I'll tell you about in a second. And I went around the gym thinking, just want to let people know this is going on. And anyway, I spoke to the one girl. I spoke to a few people, and they were tempted, but, maybe not today. But, it was all very positive. And a couple I did think might come, they didn't. But there was this girl on treadmill I spoke to, and I could have walked past her because her physique was as such where she looked quite fit, and I kind of was thinking, well, she's probably confident. She might not need, my like pep talk about come to my class. But I thought I'm trying really hard to not be judgmental on how people look, because I'm, for instance, still classed as being obese, yet I'm a qualified personal trainer. And I think that there is what you see and who you are two different things. Yeah. So I spoke to this girl on the treadmill. It turned out she'd never done a class, and I've got no strength. That was what she told me. And I was like, it's a strength-based circuits class. I had a lovely chat though. Anyway, she turned up to my class, and I actually had 3 people in the end, and I did set up in like a record time of 10 minutes, and I was shaking, I was nervous, and I had to do the mic and the music, and they're waiting. Then I even had to do like a warm up with them, and I did jumping jacks in front of them and like with them. And now this is important, because I could only do a jumping jack 6 months ago on my own. And yet there I was in front of 3 people doing jumping jack, multiple jumping jacks to show them how to do it. And so I somehow managed to bring in 3 people. The one that booked on weirdly, or maybe not, was someone I inducted in the week. And I had said, it's my first class. I'm really nervous. Have you ever done classes? And he point blank said, no, they're not my thing. But he turned up. And probably because I explained the process and what I was going to do.
Yeah.
This other girl turned up, the one that was on the treadmill. And after the class, she was like, no one's convinced me yet to come to a class but you. And I loved it. And I was like, this is amazing. So I don't think anybody's ever in the history of my manager gone around the gym like that to recruit for a class. No one's done it.
No.
So what they do is they just see, oh, no one's turning up, or one person's here, I'll do a PT session.
Yeah.
And instead, I went round and I did that thing. I told them who I was and why I'm different. But the best part for me is I then was on the gym floor. Now, there had been someone that I'd spoken to when I went round the gym. And sorry, this is a long one.
No, I'm enjoying it. Keep going.
Cool. So there was this guy who was on the Stairmaster, and Stairmasters are hard, right? I don't know if you do them at all. Yeah.
I don't, tough. But I know them. Yeah.
Yeah, I have, but don't now, because they're hard. They're a lot, on the ankles, on the knees, everything. But mentally, they're also a lot.
Yeah.
And there was this guy on them, and he didn't have headphones in. Now, if he had had headphones in, I wouldn't have spoken to him, because I could see he was going at a good pace. He wasn't strolling, he was marching. But he didn't have headphones in, so I took a bit of a gamble. This is pre-class, and I went on the Stairmaster next to him, and I was like, you don't need to talk, because he was hot. He was really in the middle of the workout. I was like, please don't talk to me. I'm not here to interrupt you. I'm just gonna tell you why I'm here and what I'm doing. And I did like a 10-second, like, I'm new, I'm doing this class. If you want to come. If not, sorry I've bothered you. Have a fantastic workout. And I left it at that.
Yeah.
After the class, he came to me and he asked me, how did the class go? And he didn't say any word to me when I pitched him. I don't think he could speak. It really was one of those moments. And he was like, how did the class go? And I was really happy because I did it. And I obviously was like, oh, it was really good. And he was like, how many people came? And I was like, 3. And bearing in mind 30 can book on. That's the max. Yeah. So I had 10% of a full class. But most people would probably be disappointed. And here I am like, oh, it was great. I had 3. Yeah. And he was like, oh, only 3. I could probably do 3. I just don't like groups. And I was like, yeah, only like this, because it's the first ever time they've done a class on a Sunday afternoon in years. It's not been a staffed shift in my gym, but the timings have changed. So it is now. So of course there isn't this core group of people that turn up on a Sunday afternoon. It might change now it's here. But I sort of explained to him that, 3 people, it's great. My happy place actually really would have been 4. So 3 is great for me. But I could tell when someone says they don't like groups, there's usually a reason. And it's probably a bit like mine, and that trauma probably from something happening or a self-confidence issue of something that has happened in that person's life. So we're continuing our chat, and I just said, because this is where me being different comes in. So I don't know if this person is autistic, ADHD, neurotypical, just doesn't like groups. I have no idea. I don't even know their name still. But I knew that they didn't like groups. And I just said, if you want to come next week, if you want to reach out to me a few days before, I can tell you the exercises that we're going to do in advance. Yeah. Because I know for me, I could only go to one personal trainer's classes at my old gym. And it was my own personal trainer. And it's because I knew exactly what each week the class would be. So I could mentally prepare myself. And that's, something she had never done. I had to be asking for it because I wanted so much to do these things. So I offered this, and you could tell he was like, that would be really good. And he took a card and off he went. That single interaction has been the highlight of a lot of time for me, because those are the people that I want to bring into, not just into a gym, but even just into a class. And I've never seen him do weights in the gym. I've always seen him upstairs on the cardio. So I also said that I do, personal training sessions. And if he just wants, I'm going to just jump here a sec. Too many personal trainers, in my experience, want to sell a program. And they want it to be 6 or 8 weeks. And they'll give you so many workouts to complete every week, and you do it. I that's the money maker, I think, is where you get these clients in for the programs.
Yeah.
They don't work for everyone. And so I'm offering like ad hoc personal training sessions as well. You can book a program and you can book a block, but I'm also happy to do one now and one in a month. That doesn't bother me, because for me, it's about building confidence. So if he wants to book a session, or anybody to book a session, just to try some cable machines, because they look at them and they really want to try them, but they're scared and they don't know how it works. And they do look quite intimidating. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
if you don't know what
completely.
You're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let alone setting up a barbell. It's scary things. And I think that actually what I thought would be a slow burn for my business, which should be, just existing until people found me. Actually, my people are in the gym already, and they just need someone to do things a bit differently for them to try different things. And it was this eye-opener. I popped into a workout yesterday and my boss was in. First time I'd seen him since the week before my class.
Yeah.
And I was like beaming. And he was like, I've been wanting to talk to you about your class. And I was like, I loved it. And it was just every interaction I had, terrifying. And I will be still terrified next week when I do it again. But it reminded me that, like, this is why I'm doing it, is those people, the girl that came, the guy I inducted, and the guy that was on Stairmaster. They're my people, and they're all there. And yeah, that's why. And it's like, if I ever need to remind myself why, I struggled through my assessments because they were the most uninclusive, unaccessible things I've probably ever done. I had meltdown after meltdown because they were that difficult, but I did it. And this is why. It's for those people. And yeah, I mean,
feel
that's
a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really love about it is it highlighted something to me, that actually you'd spoken to lots of different people there, and it's very easy, certainly in a gym environment, or even just whether people go to the gym, of purely judging it, from the outside. So you saw the guy on the Stairmaster, you saw that girl who had a physique that you thought she's fit enough, she knows what she's doing, but actually it all comes from inside, and that's what we can't see. People's brains, the person who doesn't want to group, someone who's never been to a class, someone who hasn't done weights because some of the machines look, intimidating. It's very easy to look at someone physically and go, cool, they're a good runner, they're fit, they know how to use the gym, but not realizing they'd love to go and do some weights, but they're just intimidated by it and haven't had the confidence to ask someone to show them.
Yeah, I want to break the barrier down between that, like what you think, and actually the reality. And it has been just such an eye-opener and I think also for my colleagues, because I'm the first openly autistic ADHD personal trainer they've had working with them. And I'm not shy about it. My business name is not so typical. That in itself is like, I'm not normal. And I'm happy to say I'm a bit quirky and different. And for them, they don't do that. They don't go and recruit for their classes. And I think it's brought the whole kind of neurodiversity being invisible. It's brought to the team like this new energy that wasn't there before, because my brain is different. And actually you do need teams that have variety. And that's how you have a really good, strong team.
Yeah.
But I think, I hope that I can not only help people get into the gym, but I also want to look at the qualifications thing that I touched on, because I shouldn't be the first autistic, ADHD or anxious, depressed personal trainer in this gym's history, because the gym's been open for like 20 years. So where are they? Why can't we, or me, people, more of us qualify to do that? And that's like a whole thing about accessibility as well. But I can only do one thing at a time. And right now it's about just helping like the everyday person prioritize their health. That's my thing. And improving just quality of life.
Thing that you're doing. Rhiannon, I've absolutely loved chatting to you today. Hearing your story, hearing your excitement and your passion for helping people, and that, I guess, open and honesty about, this is me, this is who I am. Probably shows you are accepting it much more yourself. I think, I always say that, however much we work on ourselves, it's never quite finished. There's always work that we can be doing, but it's so good to see that, actually you've embraced that, you've done some work, and actually now you're using that to help other people as well. So, thank you for sharing your story with me. It's been fantastic. And
No,
yeah,
thank you for having me.
no, it's
It's
been an absolute pleasure, and I wish you all the very best with your business going on. I'm certainly going to be following along and seeing where it takes you, because real inspiration. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.